we could kind of go step by step, and you can share, stories from the stops between Altimmune and Barinthus if you'd like. But if I fast forward to your arrival at Barinthus, what, five plus years ago?
Yeah, 5+ years now.
Yeah. What was the sort of the origin story of Bill's arrival at Barinthus?
Well, I decided to leave Altimmune, where that first CEO role was, after almost 11 years. So we had just gotten very good phase 2 clinical data in 2 different programs. We'd raised a bunch of money, so they had a couple of years worth of cash. I thought they were in a good place, and I just felt that I needed to try and figure out what was next for me. So it took some time to try and do that, and a friend of mine was interviewing for a CEO role at a company in Oxford in the UK, and asked me to be a reference. And so I was a reference for him. And at the end of the conversation, the recruiter said, so what are you doing? And so we talked through that, and she said, I think I have a job for you, actually. And so that led to coming on board at Barinthus. And
that wasn't the job that you were referring your friend to, was it?
No,
you didn't pull that. I pulled my position right out from under my buddy.
He got that job also.
Very good.
Yeah. But so it was kind of a similar situation. The first time, the first CEO that helped found the company at Barinthus was much more of a scientist than he was a fundraiser and company builder. He'd done both many times, but that's not where his preference lied. And so when we were looking at a potential Series B, and the desire to go public, he basically told the board, which were his main investors, I hate talking to investors and I hate talking to the board, so you better find someone who likes it. So so he moved into the chief scientific operating officer role, and I came on board as the CEO. Again, interesting transition when you've got the former CEO still part of the company. But again, we were able to work really, really well together. Still good friends with both of those guys, actually. And, amazingly, I joined in August of 2019, and, January, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And that was a huge transition for the company. So, it was a really interesting time because we actually the company was started as a flu vaccine company, and we had 2 phase 2 trials that were reading out in January. And both of those trials were not successful. From a data perspective, they read out on time and on budget, and so there were successful trials. Just the data wasn't good.
Yeah.
And at the same time, our technology was really applicable to COVID. And my CSO, Tom, came and said, "Hey, there's this interesting virus that's spreading in China, and I think we should pay attention to this and start doing something here." And I said, no. I said, we've got our therapeutic programs that we're moving forward. We've got to get these things, we don't need that distraction. And he said, no, I really think this is going to be a major deal, and we need to get involved here. And I said, okay, I'll give you $50,000 to do kind of the initial work on this stuff, and then we'll see how this plays out. Because all of the other pandemics that have emerged so far, H5N1, H3N2, all these SARS, none of them have turned into real commercial opportunities. And that was my fear, that we were going to spend, get distracted and it isn't a real commercial opportunity. Yeah. But, as history clearly showed, it turned into a major deal. And we were able to move really, really quickly. And, the sequence for the virus came out in mid-January. We had phase 2/3 clinical trials enrolling in April, and we're able to out-license that to AstraZeneca. Clearly you want to get big pharma involved when you're talking about large scale manufacturing and distribution. That's really what they're really good at. And so, we out-licensed this vaccine to AstraZeneca through the University of Oxford. And so we're, involved in the invention and the early development. And then we got some royalties out of it. So it was good non-dilutive funding, very solid validation of the platform, very solid validation of the safety profile of the platform. So a lot of benefits for the company. In multiple areas, and because we out licensed it so quickly, also not too distracting. So that was also helpful and allowed us to continue the development work in what we've got going on right now, which is primarily in HBV and celiac. Those are the two core programs that we have ongoing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it occurs to me that if there was ever a time for bad data if there was ever a time to receive bad clinical data, that was probably it, because something was upending everything anyway, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we were fortunate in that regard, because people didn't really pay attention to the bad data too much because of everything else that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we were, we already had a program with a different coronavirus in MERS, and we're continuing to develop that program with funding from CEPI, which is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness. So they're funding that program, and so that's moving along in the background. But as I said, we've got a potential functional cure for hepatitis B, and that program we announced really promising, probably best in class data in the industry at a recent major liver conference. We'll have more data from that coming up later this year, and then we've got a really interesting technology that we acquired from a Baltimore-based company that we acquired. That we're moving into celiac disease, and that program we hope to dose our first patient here very, very soon. So it's passed, it's cleared the FDA to get the trial enrolling, and we've got sites initiated, and we're screening patients. So hopefully we'll get that moving very, very quickly. And so we've got an exciting platform and exciting programs moving forward.
Yeah. I want to jump back real quick to that, that point when you said it was your CFO who came along and said, hey,
CSO.
CSO. Okay.
Yeah.
The CSO at the time was still the former CEO.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So he comes along, and I mean, he says, hey, this is something we should be paying attention to. So I'm gonna give you the leadership lesson that I take away from this experience, this story, this anecdote, and see if you agree and what you might add to it. So I take away from that story the metered approach to a potentially conflicting or an opportunity, potentially conflicting or distracting opportunity, taking a metered approach to it, maybe shelving ego, like, hey, this is a former CEO saying we should be doing this, and I'm like, hey, I'm setting the direction for the company now, I don't think so. Shelve that for a minute, take a metered approach. And the metered approach in this case certainly paid off for Barinthus, and it helped set you up to make transitions toward what you're working on now. Would you agree? Is that sort of
that's absolutely a fair assessment. I mean, like you said, initially the initial thing was, look, I don't look at this as a commercial opportunity at this juncture. I mean, it was so early. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, when he came to me, we didn't even know the viral sequence yet. I mean, he was totally on top of this. He's an infectious disease MD by training, kind of stays on top of that space. And so he was very knowledgeable about what was going on elsewhere in the world. And he'd seen a lot of these other pandemics come and go as well, and thought this was different. Yeah. And so he pushed hard in order to get any kind of funding and in order to even start the work.
And the board was okay with that, even after he told them that he was tired of working with them and didn't want to raise money anymore.
Yeah, it was an R&D expenditure that didn't go to the board initially because it was a small amount. But when we started, then when things actually looked like it was becoming a major deal, then quickly went to the board to make sure that they were aware that we what we had going on and where we thought we could play.